Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs, buenos noches, buenos noches, buenos tardes. My name is Trekkw2ks, and welcome to Week in Crypto on the Gentleman Crypto YouTube channel. And so, if you don't know, the basic idea here is I cover the weekend crypto news stories as far as Friday to Sunday, pop them out 08 on Monday. And the way that I kind of filter it is definitely not through the price talk stuff, but more about looking at it as events. And do these events either confirm a pattern of behavior and trend, or do they allude or highlight potential pattern and trend in what's going on within the space? And so I definitely got a couple of stories that I think kind of show some things confirmation wise, and might be some indicators for how, when you're doing your own due diligence, you want to cross-reference as much of the information as you can to see where the touch points are and what makes sense. If I didn't say it, because I really don't feel like I said it, I'm Trekkw2ks, by the way. And so I'm going heavy on Cointelegraph. I don't know why. It just kind of, a lot of the stories, or at least the things that I filtered down to, it ended up being a real like Cointelegraph lineup pretty much. So I'm gonna try to run through these 6 things and do it hopefully in under 30 minutes, but at least no more than 30-ish minutes. Y'all know how I get sometimes really passionate. For those who have been listening to me on this for a bit, sometimes I get worked up. But if you haven't, please do stick around, and do understand, though, I'm not the price talk guy. We do have other people on the network who are definitely more geared towards and suited towards the price talk conversations in relation to what's going on in the space. I just don't happen to be that guy. But nonetheless, I'm still do what I do, right? So we're going to jump into these stories. Oh, and before I jump into the story, as always, I do want to say thank you, and I appreciate the folks who are continuing to come back and listen to my takes on, what is going on in the space, for at least the things that come across my radar. And I'm not going to say take everything I say as like truth. Do understand, I'm not a price talk person. I'm not a CPA. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not a financial advisor. But I do appreciate the folks who do tap in and who do take what I'm saying into account for how they're doing their due diligence and research within this space and how they're looking to push forward. I do appreciate that. Thank y'all very much. So let's jump into this first one. This kind of caught my eye because it's a kind of a big statement when you. Sorry about that. When you read it, especially in relation to Bitcoin, right? So privacy is not a core feature of Bitcoin, says KuCoin CEO. Now, initially, when I was going through the story, I was like, well, where is this going, right? Just off of the title alone, it's a clickbait kind of thing. So, jump down a little bit, right? Where are we at? Amid KuCoin's exchange preparing to adopt mandatory KYC checks, the company CEO argued that privacy is not the most important feature of Bitcoin. So once I got to that line, I was like, oh, so this is really more so about y'all are about to do a terms of service upgrade in the KYC thing, because you see what is going on in the bigger landscape of the space and the influence that regulatory things within the US are having, as well as what's going on in the EU and how MiCA is being put into play, and what's going on in Asia as far as like Japan, South Korea, even what's going on in like Hong Kong, Singapore. Everyone is revolving around the transparency thing in KYC under the AML, which is anti-money laundering rules, right, and policies and practice. So this is them, well, at least in talking with him, doing the sideways of, well, we have to change the way that people are thinking about privacy and Bitcoin and how those things go versus this whole conversation around KYC. And so it was definitely a PR move for them to try to change the narrative around this, right? Because he says something here that just had me go like, wait, so we just going to throw out the whole white paper like it didn't mean nothing? So let me jump down to this part. He goes, KYC is aimed to protect the assets of the public and to ensure that assets are protected on 2 different levels. This is Loai said. And then he also added in, the first level is ownership. So you know that the money is yours. And the second level is that you can actually track your assets in case of theft. So if you lost your assets, you'll be able to track and source and make sure the source is clean. So let's understand this, right? Granted, they're taking X amount of what he said out of a longer conversation, but it's almost like, wait, so having private keys and ability to sign transactions, that doesn't give you positive control? Or did I miss something? Then the other part of, wait, are you saying that you can't track and trace transactions in Bitcoin on the Bitcoin protocol? Because that, like, at this point, we all thoroughly, I hope thoroughly understand that Bitcoin is not anonymous. It is pseudonymous, right? So you can see and trace the activity. You just can't make the connection per se between the activity that you see on chain and in real person, in life, real world person, as far as like, well, I know that that is John who lives over in blah, blah, blah country at blah, blah, blah address, right? Unless you did X amount of KYC stuff to connect your wallet address with your real world person identity, which at this point, if you're using any central exchange, that's pretty much where you're stuck at right there, right? So it's just one of those like, are you talking to the new people who don't know better? I'm going to say yes. That's who this is directed at. They're trying to change how people perceive and understand this thing of privacy and what Bitcoin's original intended purpose was, which was giving economic sovereignty, and a part of economic sovereignty at core is privacy. So then to have this dude tell you, well, no, that doesn't even matter. It's just a feature. It's a feature that doesn't even matter anymore. And it doesn't really matter because KYC is more important to help protect you from theft. Well, bro, we on two different understandings. But then again, I'm not running a multi-million-dollar exchange business, and I'm not the one trying to stay relevant in the American market or the European market for that matter, as well as the Asian market, because I'm not the one running this business. So he's doing what he has to do to, quote, keep the business viable within that, in this legal regulatory environment, right? So I can't fault him for that, but it's one of those like, if you don't know no better, you're gonna read this and be like, oh well, he makes sense. Like, we do need KYC because if somebody does get me, then how do I get my stuff back? Well, if you on the exchanges, we already been saying for how long now, more than a decade, not your keys, not your cheese. And then I got another story in relation to like how the whole exchange thing works out. And it gave me a question, but I'm gonna get into that in a minute. I'll get to that story. The other thing was this one here. So like I said, the real whole point of this story is it's about the upgrades that they're going to do in their KYC policy, right? So KuCoin officially announced in late June that it will be introducing mandatory checks for all new users on its platform starting July 15th. Without completing KYC, newly registered users will not be able to access KuCoin's products and services. At the same time, existing non-KYC users are still able to trade, but will be restricted from depositing new funds. So basically make what you make and then you got to move it off, which at some point they'll probably upgrade the policy again and be like, oh, well, you can either only move this amount in a 24-hour period, or they're going to be like, oh, well, you can't move anything unless you KYC, even if you're only just moving the crypto itself off. And as opposed to like, well, are you depositing a fiat or are you converting into a fiat and then moving off? They'll probably change their thing again, but I don't want to beat on this story. Link for this will be in the description. If I'm understanding this wrong, hey, link the comments are always open. I do appreciate the pushback. You know what I'm saying? It helps me better understand why I stand on things the way I stand on them. So if somebody got some other thing to say on this, I do appreciate. If you agree with him to say that privacy doesn't matter in Bitcoin anymore, please say something. And yeah, we'll go from there. All right, jumping into this next story. So UK Law Commission report challenges Craig Wright's suit against Bitcoin developers. This is actually a big deal, right? And I'm gonna say, and I included this story, even though the timeline that it came out, it was like late Thursday by the time I seen it, right? But I'm including it because this is something that matters in the space in relation to where do you hold developers, the people who write the initial code for this crypto stuff, right? Meaning that if somebody uses the code to do some hacking down the road, well, how do you get it back? How do you hold it back to the developer? Yo, I got another interesting thing. You know, let me run through a little bit of the highlight on this, and then I'm gonna throw in a book that I recently finished reading, which I'm gonna make this connection between what is going on in this case and then the book that I just finished. So let's go down. Where are we at? We are right here. So a recent report released by the United Kingdom's Law Commission could weaken a central argument brought by Craig Wright in his controversial lawsuit against 12 Bitcoin core developers. argues the Bitcoin Legal Defense Fund. All right. So here it is again. In a 300-page report on digital assets published in late June, the Law Commission, an independent body that reviews and recommends reform to UK and Wales laws, cited a classification of fiduciary duty that bolsters the developers' defense that they are not directly responsible for 111,000 Bitcoin lost to hackers. So basically, Craig Wright's doing a lawsuit that's called for his company called Tulip Trading that says that the core developers were part of the reason why, and they should be held accountable because of the open source. Let me read down into the next thing. So Craig Wright, owner of the Tulip Trading, claimed in a 2021 lawsuit that developers involved in the open source development of Bitcoin Core owe him a fiduciary duty in connection with his loss. In order to recover the allegedly stolen funds, Wright is seeking a backdoor into the Bitcoin blockchain. Wright is also known for claiming, that line don't even matter. We all know at this point what's up with him. So let me get down into this other highlight part, and then I'm gonna get to the book. So the UK report sheds light on the definition of fiduciary duty, claiming that categories of fiduciary recognized by law include agent, trustee, partner, company, directors, and solicitors. The report said fiduciary duty rarely exists outside of these categories. According to BLDF, the developers' legal representatives, the defendants do not fit any category mentioned by the commission. So basically, it's like, hey, like from what the commission knows in their study of the law and how it's written in UK, developers don't even fit in any of these already multiple, let's say, labels that you could fall under. So if they don't fit in any of these labels, then how is this dude trying to argue that they have a fiduciary responsibility to help him be whole by, quote, putting in a back door for him to get access to the Bitcoin, right? I'm not going to continue on and reading that, but where I'm going to go, wait, there was something else that actually had caught my attention. This ties into actually the book too. According to, no, not that part, this part here. So the Tulip Trading suit could set case law for open source developers' liability for assets, with a trial in a case expected to occur in 2024. During the Bitcoin 2023 conference in May, Jessica Jonas, BLFDF's chief legal officer, noted that the potential legal ramifications of the lawsuit could deeply affect the community of open source developers, as 97% of the world's software programs are open source. So I just finished reading this book called This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends by Nicole Perlroth. She's a New York Times writer. There's definitely certain things in the book that she had got into that I was like, I definitely see how it has its patriotic American spin on it, right? But what is really the noted point in this book is the US helped create the gray market for 0-day vulnerabilities. And, we have our different agencies that do what they do and all of the thing with like national security and cyber and blah, blah, blah. Now, the question comes into this in connecting this thing about saying, well, developers would then be held liable for what someone does with their code. In this book, she gives a couple of different examples of how the US does things that eventually blow back on us and eventually blow back on our quote allies. From like Stuxnet to WannaCry, and these are like really major 0-day attacks these are major 0-day vulnerabilities that were used in ways to attack various systems of anything that was online. And so here's the question. How long, if let's say, for example, he gets the win of, yes, the developers are held liable in some fiduciary role to help him get, quote, his loss. All right. So now you're saying that developers are responsible for what other people beyond them do with the code. Okay. How long do you think it would take before this would move over into the cybersecurity world? Because it is 100% a cat and mouse game of, I come up with a way to defend something, someone comes up with a way to penetrate something. And it's literally a whole, I want to say at this point, it's in the 100 billions, if it's not touching a trillion, And no one really knows what the actual volume or value of the market is, because there's a whole bunch of secrecy around, well, was it a $100,000, worth vulnerability, or was it a let's say a $2 million joint? And then you don't know what company or what boutique software agency either paid for it, developed it, did whatever with it. So now, again, like, I'm looking at this going, yeah, this is in relation to the crypto space, but this lawyer is right. Like, this goes far, far beyond the crypto space. And then think about what happened to the dude from Tornado Cash, right? There's still a whole gray area on, like, what is his actual charge? How much longer does he have to deal with it? What does he still get to do as, like, what is his legal defense, right? Whose jurisdiction are we going under this, right? And then if you look at how the US does things, at the end of the day, even though we might not have the exact reach of jurisdiction into a particular country, and it might be one of our friendly people, we might not have that law agreement, but we'll still do things to be like, all right, bet, we'll still push the pressure on or give the shoulder tap to that jurisdictional government and be like, yo, you need to do something about this entity or this person, and then govern it under your stuff. Or, like, you got to work out something to get that person to be over where we can touch them. Like, so the point being is, considering the things going on in the bigger world right now, this arguably would be a very, very dangerous precedent if he does win the case, because you got to understand, he's not just fighting in the UK court. He's definitely going to places that have been a little bit more friendlier to his arguments, but all it takes is that, all right, well, I want it over here, I'm gonna need to go to another jurisdiction. And if he keeps piecemealing it together, the ripple effect, again, not just in the crypto space, but when you look at the larger open source market, this is a very, very big thing. As well as, if I don't know for how many of y'all are actually paying attention to how the way that open source is being used now in the tech space in general, in my mind, is very much changing. Because when you start looking at who are the let's say the front companies or developers that are doing stuff, but then when you start following the money back for, like, well, case in point, if you know what GitHub is, you know that Microsoft bought GitHub a number of years back, right? And so you have that situation. Red Hat is a Linux-based software that how they were making their money is that they were making their money off of providing service for the free open source tool to different businesses and government agencies and whatever. Now they're talking about, well, we're going to take our open source code and put it behind a paywall. What happened? IBM bought Red Hat a couple years back. And so now that whole the landscape of open source is changing. And I don't really think, if you're not really paying attention to tech, it goes over your head. But there's more going on to this than folks really are taking into account, is the point. I'm just saying, this particular case of one of the many cases that Craig Wright has, this is definitely something to pay attention to, and not just because it's a crypto thing. It definitely relates to the bigger space of open source. All right, jumping on to this next story. What's the next one? I know I'm running on time. I already feel it. I'm gonna try to cut through some of the things. This one didn't. Okay, so why am I talking about this one? Shakeup at Polygon Labs. President will step down and chief legal officer will become CEO. Okay, so if you didn't notice or pay attention, or you weren't in, like, the whatever, what happened? Just, what is this, like last week or the beginning of the week, one of Binance's people left. And I had said this like months ago, like before we actually started into the quote winter market stuff. You're going to see a lot of switch up happening with the companies that are, especially if they're here in the American market, if they're in the European market, they're going to start doing certain things on the switch up. We see how the SEC has moved. And so now the major companies, let's say the top, I don't want to say 50, like, because I really doubt anybody can name like 50 of the top companies here in the US and like the European market. But the point of where I'm going to this is, where's the part that I wanted to read off? Here. All right. So the point of where I'm going to this is, the companies are having to adjust to the market, right? So part of those adjustments are, all right, we're going to either have to take away certain market products, because the jurisdiction isn't copacetic with it, or we're going to have to start charging new types of fees to deal with adding in new compliance stuff, and compliance costs a hell of a amount of money, right? Or we're going to, like, it's a multiple of things that can be done to, quote, adjust to the market conditions, whether it be from the regulatory side, whether it be from new trends and how the users are either leaving your platform or are they coming onto your platform, and do they have certain expectations of what type of activities they want to do, where you might have a feature that they don't like. So like it worked like 2-3 years back, pre C19, but now you notice that like the drop is like double digits, and that feature that you had on there, it isn't driving anymore with the newer user base coming in. So there's a number of things that can be done, but the point being is this part is about like, well, now we got to change out the faces, right? And so wait, okay, here we are. Ryan White will be stepping down as president of Polygon Labs and moving into an advisory role for more than a year after, well, basically he'd been there for a minute and now they're about to do the switch out. And what is the next one? In July 7th announcement, White said he planned to leave Polygon at the end of July, but would be staying in the crypto space by continuing to advise the firm. Polygon's chief legal officer, Mark Barron, also the former chief legal officer at DYDX, will be stepping up as the company CEO. In my mind, it's just like, yo, they get that there's about to be some next level legal push, and they're going to need somebody who is probably more legal minded to man the ship, so to say, right? And there was something else. Oh, there was a reason why I said that. Yeah, let me jump down to this paragraph here, or sentence really. Rebecca Redding, Polygon's chief policy officer, will take over as the firm's chief legal officer upon Barron's departure. Caroline Pham, I've seen her. She's been making her presence known in the space over this last year. This is the CFTC's head person. Recently appointed Rettig to serve on the CFTC's Global Market Advisory Committee's subcommittee on global market structure, technical issues, and digital asset markets. Mind you, I need y'all to understand this, right? This isn't a technical person that's gotten put into this position. This is a lawyer. This is a compliance person. So like, she might have some level of understanding of how the tech works, how the products are put together. But her main thing is like, well, how do we deal with this from jurisdictional thought process? How do we deal with this with like legal compliance thought process, right? It's not about, quote, what the tech can actually do in full scope. It's about how do we get the parts of the technology and how our business model works to be able to make money in this jurisdiction. That's where they're going with this. The point, again, of why I bring this up is because this is a part of their new branding thing that they're about to do, which the change in leadership comes as Polygon has been preparing a setup of upgrades aimed at establishing the value layer, in quotes, of the internet. A move branded as Polygon 2.0. So again, like, this is them changing captain of the ship in order to go with the new brand messaging, the new brand, not necessarily the new brand identity, but the new brand messaging for what they see as how the regulatory space is influencing / changing how exchanges will be able to operate within the US, at least in the US. Now, what's going on in the other markets, that's going to be a whole nother thing for them. But you're going to see this more and more. And like I said, from earlier this year, like, just some of the folks that were being hired from the traditional finance side, it was people who were either somehow in the legal area or business development, and who were able to do like partnerships that were not just like, oh, well, we're making a partnership here in the States with some company that's like 2 states over. Like, no, we need to do this like cross national border level stuff. You're going to start to see that switch out happening more. Folks are going to be moved around. I'm saying this is an indicator, as not even an indicator, confirmation, because like I said, I was calling this out from earlier this year and last year when I started seeing the articles coming out about who was getting put on to be the new VP of this, who was getting to be the new C-level person for that. And this is just still confirming from what I saw back then. And the companies are adjusting on how to deal with the crypto winter, as well as the jurisdictional fallout from what the SEC is doing. And so this is just the prepping for when the next halving happens. And That's all. That's how I'm throwing that out there. If you disagree with me, cool. Again, comments is always open. We do appreciate, as I've been saying before, like, we don't delete comments, but we do keep receipts. So just saying, when you're ready, it's always open. And the link for this will be in the description on this. Don't forget that neither. If you want to dig a little bit more on this, please remember, like, do your own due diligence. I'm not your CPA. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not your financial advisor. Just some dude on the internet who just happens to have been in the space for a little bit and kind of gets into seeing the trends and patterns of how this space has been working and how it relates and connects to other things beyond cryptocurrencies and metaverses and NFT stuff. So yeah, now jumping into this next one, 2 more to go. Like I said, it's a heavy Cointelegraph thing today. This story, so each DeFi circuit breaker could cut hack losses by 70%. Again, one of the things I said, I continually say about some of these news stories is they'll throw out numbers at you, right? Because like, oh wow, like we can save 70% of the losses. That's more than half. So that just mentally triggers like, oh wow, that's more than half. That's a good thing, right? Let me jump down into what's going on. So basically, there's a developer. He put some stuff up on GitHub in relation to a new proposal that talks about, and this is ERC 7265. If you are interested, you can definitely go check out GitHub. You can definitely go and find this person on Twitter and see what it's all about. Here's my thing. I understand the intention, but I also understand if you make this ability or this feature, if you make this function available, it will start off for sure in, 1 or 2 of the no-name projects just to like test out for a little bit. But this will eventually catch on to one of the bigger, let's say, tokens, right? And that is where it like once one person does it, they see like, and then the other project developers, the founders see like, oh well, they're getting some traction with that new feature in. It's a domino effect. It's a monkey see, monkey do. Like that's literally the majority of the big name companies, brands, institutions, whatever. It's a monkey see, monkey do, copy and paste mentality for business development. And it just starts off with the 1, then the 2, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh well, this is just like industry best practice right now. And the way that they're pushing this is about it being a security thing that will, quote, help save money. Like this line right here caught me, right? Last year was the single biggest year for crypto hacks, with at least 3.1 billion stolen from DeFi protocols. Here's why that line is stupid. Because we haven't finished this year yet, right? And so, of course, last year was the biggest year because the technology kept developing. The scammers and the hackers kept coming up with better and more effective and efficient ways in order to get people, as well as more people were coming into the space. So logically, of course, the number has to go up. You couldn't say that it was going to be a dip because you have more people coming in who had money that they were not looking to be most effective in protecting. And everybody was chasing the bag, however they were chasing the bag, whether they were yield farming, whether they were trying to do things on exchanges with staking, blah, 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 right? And then, you know what's also funny about this shit? We're not even talking about including FTX, Celsius, and Terra Luna and how much people lost off of, quote, legit business stuff. Like, think about that. This is a number just solely on the scammers and hacker side of it, but we're not going to include the money that people lost off of those 3 exchanges that I just named. But whatever, I'm not going to beat that horse. And I want to say, where's he at? This dude. So again, you can check this dude's Twitter thing out, follow it. If you a ETH person, if you a techie, if you a dev, I mean, again, I understand the concept and the intention of what this person wants to do. But I also understand human nature. And especially with what is going on in this legal situation, in this jurisdictional shifting, you are literally making it that you are opening up the door for less economic sovereignty and more big brother control. That's how I look at this. Where's it at? And wait, okay, here. So here's shout outs to Chris Blick, man. Like this dude, he been on it from day one and calling out things going on with his DeFi space. And I just gotta say shout outs to him because he always on it. And folks might get annoyed with how he says things or that he's always downing what we kind of we or at least over here on the Gentleman of Crypto that we talk about like, hey, it's CeFi DeFi, like it's centralized, but they market it as being DeFi, right? Shout outs to him for doing what he's doing though. The proposed standard has not been without controversy. DeFi researcher Chris Blick was among the skeptics on Twitter concerned the circuit breaker could be used for potentially nefarious purposes. So he says, "Oh dear Lord, what is this nonsense? Given DeFi devs a protocol level method that allows them to freeze your money forever. Excuse me. What could go wrong?" Again, you have twofold of a situation happening here. One is you got the hackers that you got to now worry about, right? Who, if somebody's able to manipulate that new proposal, the ERC, for the unintended design of it that works in their favor, that's one. The other one is what happens when you have a project that is having some level of issue and then they start using it in questionable ways. Then you got the other issue of what about when the various law enforcement agencies or intel agencies or some other kind of business of whatever comes in, is like, yo, well, you need to stop this person's stuff. You need to give us this person's extracted value. You need to move this person's coin to our control. Like, well, they came in with the letter and the law and the legal and we follow compliance. Oh, so you're not about economic sovereignty. You're not about actually protecting the users. And this is just me saying that. But like, I'm seeing 3 new levels of potential danger and enemies that you would have to worry about if you are on any kind of Ethereum based protocol, which, and like I just said, it's a monkey see, monkey do thing here. So eventually, if this catches on, it's going to go to Cosmos. It's going to go to Cardano. It's going to go to Poly. It will definitely matriculate throughout the space. Why? Because it gives more control. And arguably, the type of control that they're looking to give is not on the user side, but they're going to sell this as a security feature. This is going to definitely move through the ETH space. I can see that before the end of this year. Like, I can see how this would be pushed through the ETH ecosystem. I'm just saying, folks, be on your P's and Q's. Other thing to note, as you see right here in this last sentence. So Compost said that the circuit breaker isn't suitable for every DeFi protocol and doesn't guarantee a protocol is safe. He noted the circuit breaker could be an opt-in thing for DeFi projects. So that'll be the selling point to get you in the door. And then let's say like 8 months, 6 months down the line, guess what? We updated the terms of service. Guess what? We updated this feature, and you can't do this part of it unless you opt into this part of it. Like, again, I understand the dude's intention, but it don't take too much thinking to see how this would just horribly go wrong and not be in the better long-term interest of economic sovereignty for the individual holder of whatever the crypto is. That's what I'm saying. You don't got to agree with me. If you don't agree with me, the comments is always open. I promise. All right, let me jump into this next one. Crypto.com petitions court. I have to laugh at this, and I'm going to tell you why I have to laugh at this, because I remember when KnGs had brought this story up a while ago when it happened, right? And so, let me read that out. Crypto.com petitions U.S. court to uphold arbitration decision for mistakenly sent 50K. So basically what happened was somebody messed up and sent 50K to the wrong address. The person who then saw it in their account on crypto.com was like, oh, bet, I got money. All right. And just moved it off into an account that they personally controlled, that they had positive control of. Crypto.com later on figures out, oh, snap, we sent that money to the wrong place, and goes, hey, we're going to go to court. You have to send us the money back. The person's like, yeah, I mean, what you going to do, Craig? What you going to do? You know? And so they don't get the money back, even though for the first court set thing that they went through, they quote won it. But the arbitration part is like, well, how do you get it back from the person? That's basically the issue. So let me jump down to this highlight part here. Blah blah blah. Here we are. So according to the July court filing, Crypto.com erroneously deposited 50K into James. Oh man, I'm not even gonna mess with your middle name. McJunkins' account in June 2022, despite the user seemingly not earning the funds through trade or other activity. He immediately transferred the funds into an external bank account, of which Crypto.com's authority is ignored. Oh, sorry. Blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, y'all. Bank account out of the reach of Crypto.com's authority and ignored repeated requests to return the money. Now, remember, we say, not your keys, not your cheese, right? So, and I don't know if he did the conversion thing exactly, but it's just like, well, not your keys, not your cheese. If I would have sent my crypto or my, wait, was it that? Hold on. See, okay, so if he would have sent 50K to someone else's account, whether it was in crypto or was it in the fiat, right? And then he went to the argument of, hey, I need y'all to help me get this person to give me back my money. Would they have supported him? And if they wouldn't have supported him, why do they think they should get support now? Right? And then you got to look at the other part of like, there's going to be a update in their terms. Well, I think the update for their terms of service has already happened. If you have been a user for Crypto.com for any amount of time, longer than 6 months, you definitely notice that they do forced updates on you on the app. So when they do their terms of service update, they force you to do the update on the app, and then you can't do, so you really you can't do any get around with them when it comes to the app side of it. And if you're working on the desktop side of it, they'll do certain things to get you to look at the terms of service and go through that whole thing. The point being is, the companies now, and mind you, the 50K was probably a drop in the bucket for what they make in a week. Okay, well, I mean, what they make in a day, let alone what they make in a week. But it's the whole thing of, we can't let this go unchallenged in regards to the legal court stuff. But at the end of the day, though, if you can't get the funds back, and we already passed 2022, you had to write that 50K off somehow through your tax stuff. So this isn't even about the money. That's the other thing. This isn't even about the money. This is about the principal factor of, if we're doing business, we can't have the users thinking they can get over on us, and then this sets a funky kind of precedent for how a financial platform will then, like, it messes up the imaging of how this looks in the space. And at the end of the day, this is a business, right? This is a business that is looking to be more and more like a traditional banking institute, just with more newer tech, right? So I'm looking at this going, they're gonna probably fight the mess out of this, because they can't let it slide. And then they also did this other situation where they had the 2 ladies out in Australia. I think those ladies messed up because they stayed in Australia and they didn't understand how the jurisdiction was going to work in Australia, because Australia, quote, made them pay the money back, which in this case, this is like, yeah, but how do you make the dude pay the money back? Y'all can't, you don't have IRS power, which arguably they could probably stick the IRS on you, man, and be like, hey, that dude, blah, 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 and try to make some kind of sideways argument. He's probably on a list already with the IRS because he has the money. So now they're like, oh, well, you know, you got to give us our cut. I mean, as long as he pays his taxes, I can't really see the IRS messing with him. But it would be really funky if they were able to get the IRS to mess with him in order to recoup, if that makes sense. Again, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a legal lawyer, I'm not a financial advisor. It's just one of those, like, we are seeing some very interesting examples of how you have, like, legal law, you have policy, you have what's the word I'm looking for? You have ideals within this market, within this space that we call, you know, the crypto space, that they're not always in sync. They're not always in line. We're still elbowing it out, you know, on, well, which one of these things really matter? Is it not your keys, not your cheese? Or is it, yo, you signed our terms of service and maybe we didn't have a clause in there about if money is accidentally deposited to you. But we're still going to fight you legally that even though like we can write the money off with no big deal, you still going to suffer some kind of burden for what you did because we can't let it go. Like, believe it or not, y'all, this is some street rule shit right here. Like, this is some street rule shit right here. They can't let it go because it sets a bad precedent. Granted, most folks ain't even paying attention to the thing right now, but if dude never pays it back, like, you know, like what you gonna do? What you gonna do, Craig? What you gonna do? All right, I'm gonna leave that one alone. If you're interested, definitely follow up. Like I said, link will be in the description on this. All right, so jumping into this last story, I know I probably ran on time. I'm gonna work it out. Is this one right here? So Canada's courts deem emoji valid as contract agreement report. Two things to note here. One is I've been telling y'all over the last couple of episodes, what I've been noticing is these news stations, these crypto news platforms are going into other areas of topic that are not directly or connected to crypto. Other thing to note is they're also not giving you the correlation with like, well, how does this relate to crypto? Even on, and again, like even looking here on Cointelegraph, like they're doing the same thing. Like they're going into other areas and topics, and then they're reporting it over here. I imagine that in another, let's say 2 years, so after, what's that, 2025? Let's say around 2025 or a little later, the way that the news is going to look on what is how am I saying this? A crypto news platform now is going to look very different down the road in 2025. And I'm saying that because I'm noticing the trend of how they're starting to expand off into other subjects, other topics that are not related to crypto or indirectly related. And this is an example of that. This is law case. This is Canadian law case at that. But it is also important because this speaks to the bigger popular culture of how we use emojis to communicate. And if you've been in the crypto space for a while, you know we all about memes, emojis, and like degen communication methods, right? Like or icons. What's the word for that? There's a it's symbiology, which is basically the study of images and how they translate word like ideas and concepts. And so the basic thing behind this is it was a farmer and a vendor. They already had business dealings. And so one person says to the other person, hey, you know, I sent over the contract. Is it good for you? The person sends back the emoji of a thumbs up. They took that as like, all right, cool. Everything is great. We're going to proceed on this thing, on the deal. And so one person is arguing that, well, you confirm the contract because this is kind of the pattern that you've set as far as how we've communicated in either saying things like, oh, it looks good, or you send other types of emojis. And the other person is saying, well, no, I'm not saying that I sent that to you as a confirmation that I agree to your contract. I'm going on, and so that's what's being argued out in court right now. Well, not even argued out anymore because, the judge agreed that, yo, if this is how you was communicating with this person, which is also interesting because I imagine that these was not no 20-year-olds. These folks had to probably be above 35. If this is what you was doing, guess what? You agreed. So now it'll be interesting to see how this ripples out in relation to the Canadian market. And I was trying to remember when I seen the story, like what was the thing that happened here in the States? And I remember I brought up the question. That's what it was. It was something. It was Elon. Elon did some kind of post, and it was emojis involved in it. And I was like, wait. So if somebody sent this to Elon, and then he did this back this way, it was Elon and oh God, what's his name from What Bitcoin Did? God, I was literally just watching his thing earlier today, but Elon and him, and it was something about an emoji. I cannot remember the details right now. Hopefully somebody else is picking up on what I'm talking about. And I brought up the thing of like, what happens if you take this to court and the judge is like, yeah, that's valid. Canada just answered the question. An emoji counts as well, depending on the emoji, it can count for confirmation of agreeing to a contract. How long do you think it's going to be before that happens in an American jurisdiction? Like and King be saying this, it only take one judge to agree. It only take one circuit judge court to agree, and then you on and popping. How long before somebody brings this up in a UK court, and then it only takes the one judge to agree? So another indicator of, we're seeing how contractual agreements and communication, there's a change happening. Again, we have the communication as far as like how people are communicating in general, and this is not just a pop culture thing. And again, I think that in regards to these two individuals, I don't see them being 20-something-year-olds. I see them being above 35. So, bottom line is, keep your eye out, because I do think that to a degree, like, it relates to crypto in that, like, we are in that meme reality, right? Where like memes, there's a whole thing on memes. I'm not even going to run down that rabbit hole on this one, but the idea of translating concepts and ideas and the pop culture aspect of it, like, and so emojis are definitely on that. Like, who was it? Pixar or Disney made a whole movie that was about memes. Not memes, emojis. The point is, it is a part of the modern society's language, like, not context. There's another word I'm trying to look for. Can't think of it right now. The point being is, we're seeing a change, and now it's getting some level of legal validation. This will play out more. Some of it could be good, some of it could be bad, as far as like how it affects real world stuff. Just saying, another thing to kind of like put on the radar in the back of your mind. And we'll see how this looks down the road. Like, when is this going to be in a U.S. court near you, huh? All right, so I'm done. I'm sorry. I know I ran on some time, but I'm gonna leave that there. Last couple of things to say as a closeout is, Metaverse is the Other Side is the other show that I do. We do it live on Tuesdays. Sorry, not Tuesdays. Thursdays, 8 p.m. East Coast time on the BuilderDAO Twitter account. I put the link in the description for it. I should actually put the website and stuff on there, but I just put the stuff in there for when we do the spaces on Thursdays, and we do the replay on, what is that? We do the replay on Saturdays at 12-ish. And like, the bottom line with that is, we're talking about things in the space that are not a part of the regular everyday conversation when it comes to metaverses. Like, we just did a talk about what does a back door look like in a metaverse, because that's going to definitely be a part of the site. Like, the cybersecurity is the what is it, the fifth front, as far as like battles and war stuff. Metaverses are going to play a part of that. And backdoors are not what people generally think of within the metaverse stuff. So that's going to be on a replay soon enough. We had another conversation about how the internet and like websites have been disappearing, because why? The storage is being overwritten or erased, or it's being disconnected from the World Wide Web. And metaverses are going to suffer the same fate as websites. That's just a part of the technology and how the cycle goes in development. But anywho, those are the type of conversations we have over there. It ain't a price talk thing. It ain't an alpha about like what's the next new token coin thing. If that's what you want, we not the show for you. It's cool though. Like, it's other people who talk about that stuff. Other thing, I don't think I have anything else, honestly. But close out of, have a productive over a busy day. If you can't have that, at least be in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company from one human to the next. That is the best thing that I can wish for you today, right? And hopefully every day as the rest of the week plays out. Other than that, I will see y'all folks at the next one. Yeah, that's it, y'all. One.